Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. Today we will discuss whether Pakistan is fighting terrorism in the real sense. Pakistan's Supreme Court has set free top terrorist Ahmad Omar Saeed Sheikh in a case related to kidnap and murder of American journalist Daniel Pearl. Sheikh is the same terrorist who was released by India in 1999 along with two other top terrorists to secure release of hostages of Indian Airlines plane IC-814 which was hijacked by Pakistani terrorists. So what does it say about Pakistan's claim of fighting against terrorism? We will analyze this in the agenda today. I am joined by retired Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar and Mr. Jitendra Kumar Oja, who is an expert on geopolitical matters. But before we begin our conversation, let's have a look at this report.
Yet again, Pakistan's farce regarding its claim of fighting against terrorism has come to the fore. The latest is the decision of its Supreme Court to release Al-Qaeda terrorist Ahmad Omar Saeed Sheikh in the kidnap and murder case of American journalist Daniel Pearl in 2002. Sheikh had been convicted by a lower court in the case and awarded death sentence, but the sentence was overturned by the Sindh High Court, whose order was upheld by the Supreme Court. The case against Sheikh fell because of the weak case presented by the Pakistan government against him. The US, which has been closely monitoring the progress of the Pearl's murder case, expressed deep concern over Sheikh's acquittal and said the Pakistan Supreme Court's decision is an affront to terror victims everywhere. It may be mentioned here that Sheikh has a terror-related case in India also and was in jail in India before Pakistani terrorists hijacked Indian Airlines plane IC-814 in 1999 to secure his release. The IC-814 plane was hijacked by 5 Pakistani terrorists during its flight from Kathmandu to New Delhi and commandeered to Kandahar in Afghanistan, which was then under Taliban rule. The hijackers demanded release of Sheikh along with Masood Azhar and Mushtaq Zargar, and India had to accept the demand for safety of the hostages. Azhar was then associated with Harakat-ul-Mujahideen and former Jaish-e-Mohammed terror outfit in Pakistan after his release in exchange of the hostages. Zargar is the chief of Al-Umar Mujahideen terror outfit. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests Ambassador Sajanhar and Mr. Oja. Welcome to the program, both of you, sir. So I'll begin by going to Ambassador Sajanhar. You must have read about Ahmad Omar Sheikh being released by Pakistan Supreme Court in the Daniel Pearl murder case. What does it say about Pakistan?
Well, the first thing that it says, Ajay, is that Pakistan is not at all serious about fighting with terrorism. It tries to take certain actions when the pressure on Pakistan is increased, whether, it is on the doorstep of any FATF meeting or when there is pressure from the United States. Then it, gives the impression as if it is serious, as if it is acting. So it has been happening right from 2001 onwards, when the 9/11 attacks took place. And so whenever the pressure used to be there, even on, he would produce some of the terrorists and hand them over to America, saying that, we are helping you, we are standing with you on the global war on terror. And we ourselves are as much victims of terrorism as, because it is being fomented from our soil, we don't have any control over them. So rather than be supporters of terrorism, we are in fact victims of terrorism.
Right.
And this is the narrative that it has been trying to, float and send out to the world. But I think the world has seen all these stratagems and all these machinations of Pakistan. It is not at all.
But Ambassador, as you mentioned about pressure, it works under pressure, Pakistan. But if we talk about this particular case, Daniel Pearl murder case, America has been closely monitoring it and has been putting pressure on Pakistan. So, despite that, Pakistan made a weak case. So, what does it say? So, they are now so brazen also.
Yeah, they are very brazen also, particularly at this moment, because now they know that, as far as the biggest support coming to them is from China. And what they think is that it is the United States that wants Pakistan more rather than the other way around. Because you would have seen that United States has stopped all the, what is known as the Coalition Support Fund, the $3 billion that was to come to it, and all that other money that was to come to it, that has been put on a hold. It is really dependent upon China as far as its funding is concerned. And it feels that as far as situation in Afghanistan is concerned, the conduit to Taliban, the connection with Taliban, the United States needs Pakistan much more than Pakistan needs United States. So it can act with brazenness, and it can act with without caring much about what the United States thinks about it.
Right.
So I think
So,
that there have to be other ways of applying pressure on Pakistan to make it do what the civilized world wants it to do in terms of against terrorism is concerned.
I'll ask Mr. Oja what could be done, which pressure could be applied on Pakistan, as we now know that it's so brazen that even American pressure is not working.
The structure of government, or rather the entire institutions in Pakistan are such that it is going to be increasingly difficult, because in one odd cases judiciary may have asserted itself because of internal political dynamics or otherwise, but in general the kind of clout which Pakistani military, especially ISI, reaches in that country, it's impossible for any institution to go against their diktat. And Pakistanis are very clever in multiple ways. You see, for a long time, after 9/11, Pakistanis were able to hoodwink Americans. They were able to obtain their support. Americans relied on them for their operations in Afghanistan against Soviet Russia. And they fully exploited the situation to the hill. Even what has happened, that Americans depend to a great extent on Pakistani ISI and Pakistani establishment for their deal, as Ambassador also mentioned about it, deal in Afghanistan. The section of security establishment within America somehow has been receptive to Pakistan's brazenness. And on many issues, it appears, one doesn't know definitely, it appears that even American system, they are not very united, cohesive. Different institutions, different structures have different ways of dealing with it. Let me tell you, Ajay, as long as Pakistan enjoys this kind of control over global, I would say, global crime syndicate, organized crime, and drug trade, Pakistan is not going to give up terrorism.
Terrorism, if we are really sincere about it, we have to attack organized crime. And 84% of entire global drugs are produced in Afghanistan and through proxy Taliban, Pakistani military. I won't say Pakistani people, but Pakistani military syndicate has been controlling it.
So that's
so I don't think they are going to give up their clout so easily.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Oja. As we know that terrorism and drug mafia and other, they are actually offshoot of Pakistan military and army. So how can they act against their own offshoot?
Certainly, they cannot act because by promoting terrorism, what they are doing, they are enjoying goodwill or clout of even American establishment. Had they not had this kind of trust with the Taliban, do you think Americans would have needed them? So they realize that they have a utility as long as their, I would say, their clout or their clause in with terror organizations are concerned, as long as these are intact, they feel that Western powers, including America, they will depend on them, and once they depend on them, Pakistani ruling syndicate, they also have to look for some benefit. And what is their benefit? They are able to have, I would say, a very worldwide machinery of propaganda. This kind of thing that they are victims of terrorism. This is utter nonsense. Some of the groups they have not been able to control. And this is an indicator that time will come, even they should realize that Pakistani state would not be able to control these groups. If people are being driven by this urge to go to heaven and go for 130 feet tall virgin huris, so I don't think any rationality, any reasonableness is going to work. So Pakistan right now is seen to rather protect its underworld crime empire, I would say. And this is not only a local phenomenon, they have same clout in most parts of Europe. I am not saying it. some of the best counter-terror experts. They have pointed it out. They have quoted Western media. I've also briefly mentioned about it in one of my papers that has come up, that has been published in Fault Lines Journal of India, that what other security experts have to say. So Pakistan is having far more this kind of underground cloud, I would say, and West has to realize that this strategy is not going to work. And whosoever are vested interests, they have to be dealt with. They cannot ignore it for too long, because ultimately it is going to impact everyone's security, not only India's security.
Right. Ambassador Sajanar, you heard Mr. Oja. So, I mean, America has to now realize what they are up to and with whom they are dealing. As he mentioned about usefulness, Pakistan has created that projection or projected itself as a very useful partner in fight against terrorism. But at the same time, it is harboring terrorists against the same Americans. So, how do you see that situation?
You see, the problem here is that Pakistan has very effectively, and I think very smartly, used its geographical position.
Right.
You know, its geographical advantage that it has, because problem has arisen from Afghanistan. And to access Afghanistan, what the Americans need is a route to physically, route through Pakistan to get to Afghanistan. And also, you would recall that, when Donald Trump came to power, he was very, very clear. You would recall that in September 2017, his South Asia strategy,
he had made it very clear that the pressure on Pakistan was going to increase. He had said that, we are not going to have any artificial deadline or time limit. Before that, in Barack Obama's tenure, it had been mentioned that all the American troops are going to be taken out by 2014. And that was the deadline that was given. So what Mr. Trump said is that there is going to be no artificial deadline, there's going to be no artificial time limit, but we will leave only when peace is established there. So and he had said that the pressure on Pakistan is going to increase, and he had wanted that India should get engaged and involved in a more proactive manner. But after that, you also saw the tweet that came out of Trump on the 1st of December 2018, where he said that the Americans had been fools to give $33 billion to Pakistan since the global war on terror started in 2001, and Pakistan had been treating the American leadership, American presidents, as fools and idiots because they had been harboring the same terrorists that America had always wanted. So, he started with that. But then very soon they came to the realization that if they want to get out, and we were discussing it in your program a few days ago, that he wanted to get out of Afghanistan for his own personal political reasons. And that is why he was in such a great hurry. And because of that, he had to change his tune completely. So the point that I'm making is that Pakistan has been able to use this geographical situation of its own. But I think if the Americans are able to get another route, like the North...
Tajikistan, why not? Uzbekistan.
Yeah, Tajikistan, but even better than that, Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan,
yes. Uzbekistan, I think, is a much bigger, much better. Tajikistan is so close to China. It has two bases of Russian armed forces. There is a major, you would have seen a Russian Tajik military exercise that has been conducted.
I guess we also have a base there. I think helicopter base in Tajikistan.
Yes, the INI base, but I think I do not really
know, and I don't want to sort of share information about
so let
what's
us
the situation of that air base there. But the point I want to make is that Uzbekistan will be much better. The last point that I want to make, Ajay, here is that instability and violence in Afghanistan increases, and that is all being done at the behest of Pakistan, because Taliban and Pakistan are very strongly interlinked. That has a very deleterious and adverse impact on situation in Central Asia. And I think Russia definitely needs to wake up to this possibility, because Afghanistan has borders with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. And there are very many troops, very many terrorist forces that are lying low under the radar, and they will come up when problems in Afghanistan increase.
So, Mr. Oja, as you heard Ambassador Sajanar, so are we trying to maybe understand that America is, I mean, so helpless. So it has to depend on Pakistan so much. As we talked about, other routes they can use, but they are still dependent on Pakistani route to access Afghanistan. What do you say?
I would say, whatever I have been watching through open media and other write-ups also and statements of different people, it appears that not here, but in every sphere, America has not been able to speak in a united voice and act in a united voice. You see what happened. Even Osama bin Laden was caught, but still nothing happened to Pakistan.
Right.
Serious consequences descended on Pakistan. So it gives an impression that a lobby, which was there in America for a long time, which continued to support Pakistan till 2001, that lobby appears to remain intact or linked. Secondly, you should not get one thing, that this organized crime is not a moral issue. Organized crime
So,
gives you
Mr. Oja,
networks.
Mr. Oja,
Just
when
let
we,
me complete.
yeah,
So they have this kind of networks would be there almost everywhere, and I maintain that nowhere law enforcement agencies or criminal justice system is so efficient that they can prevent it. Because these are very powerful. This cannot be eradicated. These can be contained to a certain level. So I suppose that they do have strong pockets of influence everywhere. Now American establishment has to realize that they have to act in a cohesive way. Otherwise, this is denting their ability. They landed up spending more than $6 to $7 trillion, and where are they now?
so as you talk about differences in America, I wanted to point out that. So apparently there are differences between CIA and maybe State Department on how to go about Pakistan. Is that you want to say, or?
No, I don't want to get into this because it's just would be speculation. But my assessment is based on whatever I read, because they should have acted in a very cohesive way. And this kind of differences are appearing even within their own domestic issue. And most American experts are saying there is no single America. There are 4 or 5 Americas. Different lobbies, human rights lobbies have a different agenda. Corporate sector has a different agenda. National security establishment has a different agenda. Others have a different agenda. This is manifesting not only on this issue, it is manifesting even on their ties with China. So this is a serious issue. I would suppose that, entire counter-terrorism strategy of all democratic states have to go to a different level. These geopolitical issues are fine mismanagement, but we have to go beyond this, Ajayji. If you are really sincere about it through your platform, I would like to share the same. Radicalism in any form, organized crime in any form, whatever issue, that has to be handled. But we have to be careful that even America, on matters of national security, you cannot be far too receptive to pressure groups and lobbies. Because the moment these pressure groups and lobbies come in, these drug networks, this crime networks,
the state propaganda groups, they happen to have a much stronger clout on these lobbies and networks. So this is where, some security establishments in that country, they have to take note of it, and they should forget the issue of, equating India and Pakistan. A large section of them have been doing it, and sections of media continue to do it even now. They have to realize that this kind of radicalism and this kind of organized and a combination of these two is going to be very lethal, and they have to be sincere, because anything happening in Pakistan, they can no longer say that it does not impact them, because large sections of, members of the strategic community in Asia and beyond, even in the West, they think that the entire problem of radicalism was created by American establishments only.
Right.
And they're not, rather promoted it for such a long time, right from the beginning of the 19th century, for their great game or for their issues with Russia. Probably we would not have been here where we are today.
So, Ambassador Sajjan, as I mentioned about that American helplessness, even after this Pakistan Supreme Court verdict, now State Department has issued a statement saying that they are trying to request or ask the Sindh government and Pakistan government to appeal and ensure that he is not released. But at the same time, we know that this Sheikh, Omar Sheikh, was involved in such a crime here in India also, and in fact kidnapping of an American and other Britishers, 3 Britishers. So, is that America can do more? In fact, today they have in this statement said that maybe he can be tried in some other country, or maybe in America, sorry. So is that an alternative? Maybe America can push, maybe he can be tried in India, or just asking?
No, I think India is, of course, out of the question. I don't think anyone would, Pakistan would not agree, and Pakistan, I guess, if that is to, go forward, I think Pakistan would have to agree that it should be a neutral place where Omar Sheikh goes and where he gets tried. So I don't think India is an option. I don't think the United States because all these are very, so to say, interested parties. I think it will have to, if he has to be tried in a place outside Pakistan, then it will have to be in a Muslim country which is seen to be a neutral country, let's say like Oman or something, which enjoys the confidence of all the parties concerned. But that having been said, I think through the back channels, America can definitely send this message to Pakistan. We are getting this FATF review coming in February next month. And definitely the United States can turn some levers and tell them that they have to deliver on this. Otherwise,
But Ambassador,
put in the blacklist.
you mentioned about FATF, but Pakistan has this excuse always that it is the Supreme Court, which is the court which has let him free. Government has not done anything. So they have
No,
this
but
alibi always ready.
I'm saying these are the sort of excuses that India and the world has heard over and over again. Whether it is 2611, whether it is Pathankot, whether it is Pulwama, they said that the evidence is not enough. Now the evidence will be only that much as the Pakistan
Right.
establishment and the government is willing to present it to the
Yeah.
court.
So
And I'm sure that the courts are also not to be absolved. I'm sure the courts are also equally to blame because they are also motivated by a sort of nationalist agenda which is determined
I
by
don't,
the army.
but
and
Ambassador, I don't think there is any nationalism involved here. We have to close. Last comment I want to ask Mr. Oja. So, how do you find this
So
excuse?
nationalism of
Yeah.
their own variety to protect themselves, to protect Pakistan.
But
That is-
sir, he is a British-born citizen and he is not even Pakistani. And I mean, so why?
No, nationalism in the sense that Pakistan does not wish to appear. It is complicit in a terrorist action.
Yeah.
That is why I'm saying that they want to keep themselves away from any sort of
Right.
indication that they have been associated with any any terrorist action.
Right, true.
That's right.
Mr. Oja, I want to ask you about that Pakistani state making this alibi, this excuse that we are not involved in the court, judiciary, which has let him free, and they claim that they have a free judiciary. How much do you buy it? Last comment before we conclude.
Parliament, not even judiciary. Everyone knows that it is military which is calling shots, and military has a vested interest in liberating this person. This can have a very serious consequences. This is going to encourage more violence because people realize nothing is going to happen to them. All such terrorists are going to be protected by Pakistani military establishment. Right now, Americans may be partially unhappy with them, or they may be depending on them for their counter-terror operations in Afghanistan or wherever. But this is going to embolden terrorist elements as well as Pakistani military, which is now being supported by China. So American establishments, whether it's security or foreign policy, it is irrelevant. They have to realize what a serious threat it poses them. And they should not think that it is going to impact only India.
Right.
So I suppose India has to take up this issue, I believe.
Right. So we hope.
International community
Yeah.
see that this kind of argument is dismissed, and only entity that needs to be brought under pressure has to be Pakistani military. And I would say not only on this issue, rather international community has to have an agenda that are both for real integrity of it.
And
Yeah.
any promotion of radicalism, not only terrorism, the root of terrorism, radicalism and organized crime, it
Yeah.
has to be curbed everywhere at a strategic level.
Right.
At a tactical level, yes, we can bring pressure on this, but we should not exhaust our entire energies only on this case.
Sure, I think that there needs to be more awareness and more pressure on Pakistan to act against terror in the real sense. But our time is up. Thank you both of you for participating in this debate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.